Greetings everyone. So today I want to read you a passage from a book that I'm currently reading. It's this book, Lights in the Darkness, The Persecution of the Church in Albania. And it's written by Albanian Bishop Zef Simoni. And he died in 2009, and here he talks about some of the horrors that went on in Albania with basically communism persecuting the church, as it did in many countries. You might know family members who lived through communist times, or you might have even lived through them yourself. Generally speaking, people know that communism wasn't a good thing and isn't, where it still is. But I want to just read you this passage that talks a little bit about the kind of things that happen during communism that I know some people will probably know anyway. And let's see if you can maybe draw a few parallels to some of the things happening now in countries that are not officially communist. So here we go. But at this moment in history, anything could happen, because when evil masquerades under assumed titles, when it arrogates to itself titles that belong only to goodness, to high ideals, to progress, to science, then it will have its own way to the bitter end. It is hostile through and through. One day early in February, the slogan "War against regressive religious customs and religious prejudices" spurted out as fiercely as a flame from hell. Another day soon afterwards, in the main lobbies and in the areas of the notice boards, youth groups from the schools were to be found putting up Chinese dakiboats, or dakiboats, I don't know quite what this word is, DACIBAOT, which we called lightning notices. Among others, posted even on the doors of the churches and mosques all over Albania, there was one that announced, "Clerics, embrace work and earn your bread with the sweat of your brow and not with deceptions." The lightning notices express criticism of marital contracts arranged through mediation, of weddings and funerals that ran up expenses, of foreign songs, of hairstyles, of cowboy trousers. There were slogans against drink, gossip, the inequality of men and women, and so on. The blame for all this was cast on the Catholic faith. People began to fear for themselves, and everyone became more reserved. After all, this type of movement, which continued to gather strength, could bring anybody into the fierce light of its critical scrutiny. People would gather by the announcement boards. Not a word was spoken. Read and pass on. In the street there was whispering, and voices would be hushed out of fear, lest their words might be carried on the wind. People were afraid of the wind. "Let's hope that the same thing doesn't happen to us as happened to them over there," people said, because they had heard something about China. So, the parallels I draw, I'll let you draw your own parallels, but certainly the pushing of virtues, communism basically was selling people this idea that they are all for equality and all for good things, and the church is bad, and we need to move it out of the way so people can live good, equal lives and be happy. And you see some of the virtues being pushed now in Western European countries and the USA. Again, it's all this kind of, these are good things we're promoting, and if you're against them, you're bigoted. And you see at the end there that talk of that fear. Of course, people will say, well, this isn't the same as communism. Living in Western Europe, for example, now, you're not going to get killed for your beliefs. No, you might not, but there are similarities. Communism was done by force, whereas now ideologies are pushed very discreetly through institutions to the point where people just believe them. They're kind of born and raised into believing them. And then anyone who speaks out against them is seen as bigoted and bad. And yes, we do live in a situation now where people are afraid to speak out and say their beliefs, because they know that can cost them their job, their career, their livelihood. And so they prefer to be quiet, and then only very quietly maybe mention it to people who they trust. So yeah, that was a nice kind of little piece of text. It's a very interesting book. I suggest you do have a read of it, maybe purchase it if you haven't, or if you're interested in kind of reading about just how horrific things can get under communism. But yeah, I just wanted to read that, and I'll let you make more kind of. I mean, I think a lot of people already can see some of the similarities. And when we talk about the errors of communism spreading, the errors of Russia spreading, as was said in the apparition of Fatima, they have spread. Communism spread to many countries, and then even those countries where communism supposedly isn't around, you still get that kind of air of it around, that echo of communist kind of ideas, ideologies that aren't really officially supposedly there, or they're not there by brute force, but you do feel them. Okay, thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.